In today's video, we're going to be going over the Sandworm raid. This is the big 20-person raid boss that Amazon have added with Season 2, probably one of the biggest pieces of content that have come with the Season 2 update. Now, to actually find the Sandworm, in case some people don't know, you want to go to Worm Sign Obelisk down in the bottom left of Brimstone Sands, and you can find the entrance here. There's going to be like a backside and a front side. The backside has like some spiky gates. You can't go in from there. You want to go around to the other side, and then you can find the entrance here. Now, some quick pieces of information. The Sandworm is a beast. It does a lot of acid damage, and you don't need, as far as I'm aware, you don't need 625 gear score. It says recommended 600 to 625. Now, probably would be a good idea to get all the way to 65 because it's a little bit extra armor and a little bit extra DPS, but again, not required. One of the things you're going to need is 19 other friends. This is a raid, and the recommended players is 20. You could do it with a minimum of 12, but the more people you take, the easier it's going to be. Right, that's the basic stuff out of the way. The secondary stuff, before you actually enter into the arena, are there any prerequisites that you guys need to know of? And the answer is yes. So first of all, let's start with your gear. As we mentioned, the Sandworm is a beast, so one way that you can make your life easier against the Sandworm is wearing Beast Ward. This gives you damage absorption when you're fighting beasts, and you can get up to 5 pieces of it, so that's a 25%, well, it's 4.9, but I'm going to round it up to 5. A 25% damage reduction. If everybody in the raid has that, it's going to make things quite a bit easier. You can also put Beast Bane on your weapons as well. This is recommended because, again, you can do extra damage to beasts, and then along with that you can put trophies down in your houses. I recommend you do so. Major wildlife combat trophies allow you to do 5, 10, 15% extra damage to beasts, and the same with Angry Earth as well, because the other enemy that you predominantly see in here, there are ads that spawn in, they are Angry Earth. So Angry Earth and major wildlife trophies are the ones that I would recommend you have down. In terms of gems in your armor, you want to be looking for this padding stuff. So this is called chitin padding, and hopefully I've got some in my inventory here. So you can make this at the forge if I'm not mistaken. You could also just buy some off the trading post as well, but you definitely want to be putting this stuff in your armor because a lot of the mechanics in the Sandworm raid are revolving around acid and acid resistance. So if you can give yourself higher acid resistance, you're going to make it a lot easier for yourself to survive in there. Now, you can't put this stuff into your jewelry, but what I would recommend in place of acid padding or chitin padding is strike damage absorption. So strike protection on the amulet, I highly recommend this. And then the other gems that you put in your jewelry are jasper. So if you put, don't think I have any in my inventory here, but it's cut pristine jasper, which gives you strike damage absorption, because the other main predominant damage that you're going to take from the Sandworm, other than acid, is striking damage. So giving yourself as much strike damage absorption and as much acid resistance as possible is going to help you out with that one. In terms of consumables, I think it goes without saying, but you should be popping food that gives you the appropriate stats. So for me, it could be focus or constitution because I'm healing. Could even go for a little bit of intelligence, but we also have our mana regen food if you're a healer, or you just pump the normal hearty meal. Honing stone, obviously going to give you an extra DPS boost. You want to have your health potions, mana potions, regen potions. Again, this stuff is very basic, so I feel like we don't need to cover it too much. Beast Ward potions could potentially be something you look at, but one potion you definitely want to make sure you have slotted onto your hotbar is acid tinctures. So acid tinctures you can make at your camp, and you make it the Arcana station. These remove the acid burn affliction, which you're probably going to experience like several times throughout the fight, so this can be a game changer. Absolutely recommend you have this. And to go along with this as well, we have a very rare consumable that we don't see getting used very often, and it is called Powerful Incense. Powerful Incense basically just increases your resistance against acid burn, so you're not likely to get hit with acid burn as frequently. So to recap, consumables, definitely want to have Powerful Incense, definitely want to have acid tincture, appropriate stat food. We also want to have a honing stone, appropriate potions, and then one other thing you could look for as well that we don't have in our inventory is infused beast coating. That allows you to do bonus damage against beasts, and putting those on both of your weapons, you do need to apply coatings on separate weapons. So if we put a coating here, imagine this is beast, and then we switch over to our secondary weapon, you can see it doesn't exist, so you do need to apply coatings to each weapon. So with armor, gems, equipment out of the way, the next thing you want to have prepared is your group. My recommendation is to go with about 2 to 4 tanks, 4 healers, and the rest is going to be DPS. You want to have at least 2 tanks because there are going to be phases in the fight where you need to tank side mobs, and having a tank for each one is going to be a good idea. Also, if one tank goes down, you do have a backup tank. Having up to 4 tanks just gives you a bit more flexibility. In case multiple tanks die, you've still got people to take over. I think having 4 healers is a nice safe spot as well. Any more than that, you're going to get diminishing returns on top, and like sacred ground stacking on top of each other, but 4 healers seems to be a pretty sweet spot and a good spot for this Sandworm raid. And then your remaining players are going to be DPS. That's 12 to 14 DPS players, of which I would recommend that you have at least 4 of them ranged. So we're talking bow or musket, fire staff, ice gauntlet. Ideally bow or musket, because the Sandworm is a beast and beasts take bonus damage from thrust. Now the Sandworm only takes 10% extra damage from thrust, but that's still 10% extra DPS that you were leaving on the table if you don't use a bow or a musket, because they do thrusting damage. Also, spears, rapiers, blunderbusses, very common sort of thrust damage that you can get there as well. So a quick recap there: 2 to 4 tanks, 4 healers. The remainder are going to be DPS, and of those DPS, you want to have at least 4 being ranged, but probably about 6 is going to play it safe. So we have our equipment ready, we have our group ready. Let's jump into the raid and actually talk about the mechanics. So when you first get in there, there is going to be a little sort of tutorial zone to explain to you how the lights work. Now, the lights mechanic is probably the most major and important thing to get correct in the fight. So you're going to get these 2 angry earth mobs. We call them Goldie Boys because they're golden. I don't know, it just seems to be what they were called there. Goldie Boys, in order to deal with these, they have these shields on them. And in order to remove the shields, you have to use the lights mechanic. Now, you're going to see that there are these sort of pedestals or platforms, 4 of them around the arena. And the way this mechanic works is you have to have 4 players step onto the lights at the same time, or within, you know, a few seconds of each other, to activate the lights for, you know, coming up from the ground. When you step on these pads and you have all 4 stepped on, you're going to see colors for each individual light. Now, the way that our raid group was doing it is as you look into the arena towards the boss, you are going left to right that way. So on the far left, again, as you're looking at where the boss comes from, that was light number 1. Then we have light number 2, light number 3, and light number 4. With the players stepping on the pads, the lights become illuminated. However, the player that is standing on the light itself will be too close and they won't actually be able to see their own color that is reflected. There is a sort of a distance proximity thing, so you have to be a certain distance away to actually see the light that is coming up. And this is where having a shot caller is probably going to be like necessary for the raid. If you don't have a shot caller, you're probably going to need to come up with some other sort of system where people type into chat. But our shot caller was looking at the lights, so from them, as they look out, we're going right to left, and they would say the corresponding color. So it would be blue, 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 or blue, blue, red, blue. And then the person on the left, as we look to the boss, but the right, as you look to them, would activate the color, which would be blue. And then the next person has their corresponding color. The shot caller says that's red, and then blue, blue. Provided you can get the players to step on the pads and you call the lights in the correct order and then people respond in the correct order, this will give you a buff which allows you to do bonus damage to shields. Now, this buff is going to be something you'll need to maintain almost throughout the fight. There's going to be various mechanics in here where enemies have shields, and without the buff, it's going to take forever to kill them, including the Goldie Boys that we have at the start. So you have a chance to practice the light mechanic here and get it correct. And again, you probably want to assign a shot caller, and then you're going to need your ranged DPS players to be standing on the pads to make sure that they can do this. And if one of them goes down, you need those players to communicate that they've downed, which light they have gone down at, and somebody needs to take over. If one of the players does get the light wrong, then they will be one shot. They will take all of their health as damage instantaneously and die. So make sure that you do get the right color that is assigned to you by your shot caller. So that is the lights mechanic out of the way. And again, this is going to be something that you have to do several times throughout the fight. So making sure that you have players assigned to the lights and understand how the lights work, and then also assigning a shot caller or various players that can call out the lights to other people in the raid. As a result, having some sort of voice communication either in-game or Discord is going to make this a lot easier. The next mechanic that we want to look out for is the snot balls or the acid balls. Fairly frequently throughout the fight, the Sandworm will fling these balls of acid up into the sky. You can shoot them down with a simple projectile, so a life staff, ranged attack, or a bow, a penetrating shot, rapid shot. All of these abilities are pretty good for clearing out these snot balls. You basically want to shoot them once before they detonate on the ground. If they do land on the ground, they're going to leave a acid pool, which does a lot of damage, so don't stand in the acid pools if they do manage to connect with the ground. But ideally, your ranged players are just always keeping an eye on the skies to clear those out before they connect. Another major mechanic to be aware of with the Sandworm is his acid line attack or acid spew. So periodically throughout the fight, the Sandworm will basically do a line of acid attack. Now, this can be moved out of the raid by the tanks, so this is very important that the tanks basically try and tank and face the Sandworm as far left as possible. So the tank's positioning, again, as you're looking at the Sandworm, move it over to the far left. If the tank has the aggro of the Sandworm and is facing it towards the raid, it will do the acid line attack through all of your players, and that's going to be very bad. So tanks want to stay to the very far left or even potentially very far right to make sure that this acid line attack doesn't drop over a bunch of players, and also the acid stays on the ground for about 6 seconds afterwards, so again, make sure you're not standing in the acid. As we had at the start of the raid, we are going to get the Goldie boys spawning again. To deal with the Goldie boys, as we previously mentioned, you're going to need to do the lights mechanic. So the raid or the shot caller is going to need to get players to stand on the lights, call out the colors in the corresponding orders, then the players need to activate those lights to get the buff so they can take down the Goldie boys with their big shield in good fashion. The tanks at this point do want to make sure that they go get aggro of the Goldie boys and keep them, you know, sort of locked together. If you want to, you can group them up together, but I think for like a basic strategy, you just have one tank keeping them kind of where they spawn, which is to the left and right of the Sandworm boss. The next part of the fight after this is going to take us to the Scorpion phase. So the Sandworm is going to become invulnerable for a brief amount of time and fall under the ground. Shortly afterwards, we're going to get these two big Scorpion enemies that spawn from the left and right hand side caves. Tanks want to make sure they get aggro of these immediately and then tank them in their corresponding zones to the left and right. Or if you're feeling confident, the tanks can group them up together so you can DPS them down at the same time. While you're DPSing down the Scorpions, you need to be aware that the Sandworm is going to be periodically popping up out of the ground and like chomping people. And as it comes back down, it leaves some acid where it popped out of the ground. So DPS need to be careful to not get hit by this, along with the tanks and the healers as well. During this phase, there's going to be an acid cloud along the back of the ramps, so everybody will need to make sure that they come down into the overall arena and actually start, you know, dealing with the Scorpions. One thing to be very aware of during this phase is to stay away from the stairs, because if somebody is hanging back in the stairs area and then the Sandworm comes up underneath their feet and then comes back down and leaves an acid pool on that area, that's going to be very bad for the raid, because you will need to go up to the stairs after you kill the Scorpions and activate the lights mechanic again. So staying away from the stairs to make sure you don't drop acid pools and DPSing the Scorpions is going to be your primary focus here. So as we mentioned, once the Scorpions are dead, you're going to get your whole party, every single player, to run up to the stairs. Position-wise, you want to have 2 healers going to the left stairs and 2 healers going to the right stairs. Tanks want to stay pretty much like sort of just at the top of the stairs because ads are going to start swarming up. Now, during this phase, you're going to need to get your DPS players to stand on the lights and call out the lights again in the correct order. I think at this point, the shot caller can kind of be central, and they should be able to hopefully see everything from the middle top platform. Completing the lights in the right order, again, will give you the buff to do bonus damage to the shields, and then everybody needs to pump the heck, or every ranged player needs to pump the heck out of the Sandworm to remove its shield so you can get out of this sort of acid cloud phase. During this time, everybody's going to be taking continuous acid damage, so acid tinctures are a good point to save for this one, and healers need to make sure that they have Sacred Ground, Beacon, Orb, all of the AoE heals down to keep everybody topped up. Once you've completed the lights and then you've done damage to the Sandworm to break his shield, you want to wait just a short moment of time for him to do his big heavy attack where he swings along his like giant Sandworm body and then jump down into the arena, leaving your ranged players who are going to deal with the lights up on the platforms as per usual. And then from here, it's rinse and repeat. Now, there are 2 other mechanics to look out for. The first one is eggs. So the Sandworm will occasionally also fling these eggs into the arena. I think they're called like pellets or something like that, but we call them eggs. These can land on the top high platform and also in the arena itself. It's important that players go over to these and mine them immediately. If you leave these on the ground, they will explode and do a tremendous amount of strike damage. The more like eggs that are on the ground, it is raid wide too. So everybody who is in the area will take damage from these eggs if they don't get mined within, I think it's about 15 seconds. So once he flings out the eggs, make sure that you are sending players over to mine. You just basically just interact with them, so you will need a pickaxe. Just mine them as soon as possible. The only other attack we have to look out for, or the only other mechanic, is the Sandworm heavy attack. We talked about this after the Scorpion phase, but periodically throughout the raid, the Sandworm is going to swing his big old head throughout the raid and do a lot of strike damage and knock players down. You can avoid this just by being closer to the Sandworm, so right next to its main body, or you can be up on the platforms, or if you're sort of in that in-between area, you can just dodge as it's coming towards you. And that effectively covers all the mechanics of the raid. At some point, you're going to get overlapping mechanics where eggs will come out and then there'll be snot in the air, and then sometimes there'll be the acid line attack. Again, it is just an important process of making sure that you activate lights in the right order. Your shot caller is aware of whether you're going left to right or right to left, and everybody else is aware as which order the lights are being called in. And if somebody does go down on the lights, that they communicated as soon as possible so another player can step in and take over. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, the 2 major types of damage that you're going to take here are the acid damage. So padding, again, is going to be very, very good here, along with incense and your acid tincture. And then strike damage is the predominant sort of damage that we're going to take when the eggs explode. It is strike damage. And when you get hit with the Sandworm heavy attack, that's also strike damage. So again, running some strike protection can save you from some potential one-shots if you do happen to let 1 or 2 eggs explode throughout the raid. So that pretty much covers it for the whole Sandworm raid, guys. If you have any further questions, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. Any other tips or tricks, like stuff that I may have forgot or that has been added to the fight, let other players know in the comments down below. If this fight does get updated, and there is a chance because this was recorded on the test server, if we do see additional mechanics or changes to the fight being made, I will leave a pinned comment down below to let you guys know if any changes have happened, and potentially we'll make a new video. So make sure you subscribe for that if you want to see when it comes out, and also click the old like button if you enjoyed this video. With that being said, if you want to watch the me do this raid live when it comes out, you can go to the Twitch stream. I'll put a link to my stream in the description down below. But that's it for this video, guys. I will see you all in the next one.